All right, so I'm going to bring to order this Parks and Recreation Public Spaces Committee meeting on June 9th, 2021. The first item on the agenda is request to address council. Outside of agenda items, I don't think we have any of those. So we can move on to number 2, which is citizen-led projects. And Mary C. Miller of Norwood Together is going to come up and present a couple of things there.
This is just a presentation made by Norwood Together partnered with Xavier University and their project management class, and this was results from part of the results from the park group. And they, the students in the class, I think you've already heard this, but they tabulated all the data from the park audit and put that onto one spreadsheet. And then they were finished, and so we asked them to do a comparison of all the parks, several parks in surrounding communities. And so what we asked them for was the size of their parks, the size of the city, and the percentage of their budget they spent on parks. And just to let you know that just basically an average of those was about 2.8 to 3% of the budget. There was one community, and right off the top of my head, I can't remember, you'll see when you read through the data, that was high, like 7 to 9%. But that community had like huge fields, and that some of the fields were money makers. Yeah. So, but most of them were about 2.8, somewhere around there. And just as a comparison, up till this year, Norwood was 0.99, and that's in there too. So I just thought you guys might like to see what the surrounding communities are doing. And I also just want to thank there were 3 Xavier students who worked on this project, Molly Parker, Tia Ellison, and Jay McDonald. And they entered all that data with the help of Leslie and Hillary from the audit, and it really made things go a lot faster. So that was pretty cool. Yeah.
What page is the what you're just talking about, like how much they spend on their budget versus us?
It should be in each report. You'll just see, let's see, I'll find it. So like Warren County is the one that spent, it tells you what they spent, the amount they spent. It should give you the percentage. Let's see. Find another one. Okay, so if you look on page 6, and you'll see Hamilton County, and it says about in bold, about halfway down the second slide, this is 2.76 of the city's general fund, 76% of the city's general fund. And then the next page is Harrison, 1.6 of the city's general fund. Blue Ash was the big one at the top, 7.8 of Blue Ash's general fund. And then notice it says major revenue comes from hosting events. So they get a lot more money by utilizing their parks and having people pay for events there. So each one, Butler County was 2.79, and then it gives you the total costs and the features of all their parks. So it tells you what, basically what all the parks have, and then you can compare that to the Norwood Park. So I just thought you guys might like to see it. It'd take you a little while probably to read through it all. But they did a pretty good job and tried to get cities that were close to us in size to compare. So I thought that was just kind of interesting.
Which it appears that we're pretty much on par with most of the cities minus Blue Ash.
Well, our budget is 0.99% of we spend 0.99% on parks, like 1%.
We do.
And most of these are around 2 to 3.
We do? Okay.
So at least that was the data that I was given.
What I was asking, was that like from last year's budget or this year's budget?
Probably from last year's, I'm guessing. This year's is probably different.
So yeah,
because I got the information from Tom Perry before he left, so I'm guessing it was last year's. So hopefully this year's is up to, what most of the cities are spending on the parks. That was what he gave me, so that may have changed this year. Sure. And also, it gives you on here how many people were employed, all of those things. So just if you want to look at it and compare and think about Norwood in comparison to them, we thought it might be interesting. So, the other thing that I gave you, I just wanted to let you know that, first of all, Because our mission, Norwood Together's mission, is to grow and build equitable economic and community development in Norwood, we're just looking for ways to support that in our community, economic and community growth. And we hope that this thing and everything that we give you or talk about will just help make decisions about parks. We're really invested in parks, as are a lot of other groups in this community. We're not the only one. Just wanted to let you know, this sheet that I gave you, what's happening in Norwood, how this happened was we were planning out what we were going to do for the summer, and we meet with some other groups to see what they were doing for the summer, and it was like, wow, there was a lot of stuff going on in Norwood this summer. So we just thought it would be a service to the city to put as much as we knew onto one sheet of paper on one calendar with all the contact information on the left. And then we're going to try to keep this going. So like when we finish June, we'll try to do July, August, and September, keep it going. We talked today about putting a QR code on it so people can, this QR code in the bottom was from Ian Davis for his work at the community center. And so that gave us the idea, oh, let's put a QR code on this and we can keep updating it. If people have the QR code, they continually see what's going on. So that's just something we thought would be good for the city. We've been handing them out and posting them on Facebook so everyone will know. We send them home with kids, or we ask if we could send them home with the kids at school. So we want to keep that going. School events can be on here. Any groups doing things for the community as a whole, generally for families. Anything that people might be interested in, we'd like to put on here. So it's definitely not exclusive. Most of these things are not things that have been sponsored by Norwood Together. If you notice at the bottom, it's just being shared. We're just sharing as much as we know. And so if anybody has any information that they'd like added to that, as long as it's for the whole entire community, we're welcome. We'll be glad to add it. And just for us ourselves, just to let you know, most of you guys know that the Parks and Rec Department, the Rec Task Force asked us to sponsor the movie nights this summer. So since that's kind of an expensive thing, we're partnering with the Valley Church, the Police Association, CarStar, and UDF. Norwood Together purchased a projector and the DVD player, and the Valley Church is providing the screen and the sound system, and then CarStar and the Police Association contributed to the movies. You have to pay a licensing fee for that, and so they bought that. So between all of us, we were able to come up with a way to show 3 movies in the park, and we're pretty excited about that. Also, I think you guys all know that we started back the ward community councils, and they're all meeting in the park the 4th Thursday of the month. We're really excited that wards 3 and 4, we now have community councils there. I think they all had a decent turnout for the first one being Memorial Day weekend. So hopefully they'll continue to get better, and you guys can come and talk to your constituents and let them ask questions. Last time the mayor showed up at all 4 and answered some questions in general about Norwood and really came with some good ideas, so that was pretty cool. Also, one kind of neat thing is that we are trying to get, I'm not going to confirm this yet, it's almost confirmed. I don't know if you've seen Reels on Wheels. It's kind of a cool thing that just came out. It's like a play in a theater in like a van that they bring to communities, and it's kind of like movie night, but it's acting too. So we're working with the new program manager, Hillary, is it Williams? Can't remember her last name. Yeah. Hillary Williams, to get that in September this year and maybe again next summer. So just a heads up, keep your fingers crossed. We hope we can do it. It should be fun and something different for the city. So, you guys have any questions? Or?
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you for the update. I really am a huge fan of the community council meetings. I think that's probably one of the coolest things you guys do for the residents. So
yeah, I think it's really cool that they get to meet you guys and ask questions. And one thing Michael Gabbard's suggestion when I talked to him is maybe the at-large people rotate, go to different ones. I know they're trying to get a lot of people from the city to come visit and just talk about what they do, the schools. I'm drawing a blank now, but there was a list, maybe Public Works, and just tell about their department to each of these councils and let people ask questions. I think that's pretty cool. So they're going to start that too later on this summer, hopefully. Anybody else? Great, thank you.
All right, now take us to item number 3 is the ASAP Norwood Park audit results. I believe Leslie Stevenson is here. If you would like to come up.
Good evening. Would you like for me to stay here while we walk through this?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
Just so people can hear, I guess.
great. Well, good evening. As Councilmember Kelch said, my name is Leslie Stevenson, and I work as the project coordinator for ASAP Norwood. As you may recall from past conversations, I'm employed by Health Path Foundation, which is actually the fiscal agent for our community's coalition. I'm here tonight as it relates to the park inventory assessment, which you now have an excerpt from. I'll share about how the tool works tonight for your benefit. I also want to share a little bit more about how this work is showing up right now. So I manage the contract between HealthPath and the recreation professionals who assessed and analyzed the raw data from the park audit that was completed in the fall of 2020. As a reminder, ASAP Norwood has operated in the city since 2012. And that's how long ago the coalition members started focusing on youth activities and reclaiming public spaces. Because the mission of ASAP is expressed by providing healthy activities in the city, it's in the interest of the coalition to support and sustain local parks. I'd like to thank the Health Collaborative. They were the initial investor in the community. They saw Norwood as a place where community engagement was happening, and they chose Norwood as a city for a project to take place. And if you look in the acknowledgement section of your excerpt, you'll see who the project team was, who was funded by that initial grant. So the document in full is prepared by a third party. The final report does not include analysis or assessment from ASAP Norwood members. It does, however, include some insights into the local culture. For instance, we made sure the consultants knew that most recent census data showed most households are rentals and not homeowners. And so to engage community members, we might need strategies that go beyond door-to-door outreach. The full report is 70 pages. That's why you have an excerpt. If you need a full copy, please let me know. I'll be happy to provide it to you. I want to acknowledge the city administrators who assisted in fact-checking this information, Superintendent of Public Works, Clint Zimmerman, as well as the Director of Recreation, Phil Kraby. I also want to acknowledge the partners who paid for this, Gym of the Highlands 5K, Norwood Together, and then private donations to ASAP Norwood. So one of the tools that ASAP Norwood uses to partner across sectors is a strategic prevention framework. It's an evidence-based tool. It's a set of processes and corresponding skills that move through 5 phases: assessment, capacity building, planning, implementation, and then evaluation. I believe the park audit project fulfilled the assessment needed to then identify what capacity building is necessary to engage all the community stakeholders in developing a sustainable park system. So I want to draw your attention to the introduction and the park classifications. Those are the first couple of pages you have. So under the heading of purpose, the Norwood Park Inventory Assessment is intended to provide insight into City of Norwood, city officials and community stakeholders on the prioritization of investments and improvements for park facilities owned and maintained by the city. That was really the purpose of this project and this particular document. The introduction goes on to share data collection methods as well as analysis. I do want to note for anybody who's listening but maybe not reading, this document is not specific to programming. It's not what it was intended to do. Rather, it looks at individual characteristics, including safety features, amenities, condition of parks, park uses, accessibility, layout, and design. So when you're thinking about what you might do with this, this is the scope of work. As mentioned, there were a lot of folks involved in the process. One of the key changes, though, that happened, and I want to lift this up, the group that started with this project selected a tool, but it wasn't known at the time the limitations of that tool. So this was really a goal to do what was best with the data provided, looking at what maintenance, safety, and capital investment could be decided upon based on the analysis. So as you see under the header, Park Inventory Assessment Overview, I'm on page 2. This includes designated park categories, which are intended to provide a framework for decision making. So again, this is a tool. The document goes on to say it is intended to provide a full picture of current physical conditions of the parks and can be used as a starting point for prioritization of investment. I think it's important to note when you do read this, the experts relied on the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission's Public Playground Safety Handbook and the ASTM International Standard Consumer Safety Performance Specification for playground equipment for public use. I think that's important to highlight because we have a resource that didn't exist before in the form of expert analysis. Any questions so far? If you look on page 3 under park classification, what you're noticing there are recommendations. This section begins by saying park classifications are based on current best practices and National Recreation and Park Association guidelines and refined to fit the needs of the Norwood community. Classifications are flexible and may change with community needs and as parks are redeveloped. The recommended City of Norwood classifications are as follows: local parks, neighborhood parks, regional parks, and special purpose parks. Again, this is a recommendation based on national standards to help lead to efficiency as well as equitable development across all the parks. So if, for instance, local parks were to be deemed Burwood, Fenwick, Hunter, Marsh, and Northwoods, then a baseline model for the structure would ensure those parks all have the same things going on. There's examples in the document at this time of what goes on at these different parks, but just for your hearing, the neighborhood park designation was thought to be relevant to Millcrest, regional park for Lindner, and special purpose parks for Doral, Victory, Waterworks, and Water Tower. Any questions on introduction or park classifications? So you'll see those classifications when you're in the full document. The full document will allow you to read park by park, and it'll give you the park location and access, including a map. It'll describe the amenities that exist today, the park character, as well as the safety factors. And then each park section will have recommendations specific to that park based on its classification. Any questions, comments? So the next part of your packet should be key findings and recommendations. I just want to orient you to this. Each header in here is what is considered to be a key finding. So it starts with addressing safety, it follows with baseline standards, followed by standard operating procedures and maintenance improvements. That's on page, I think it's called 51 and 52 for you. The key findings and recommendations continue to include maximize investment and community engagement strategy.
We don't have those pages.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't? What does your next page say?
Next steps,
Next steps.
57.
Oh, I apologize. So when you read the full report, you'll see the key findings and recommendations. Those are opportunities where you can consider corresponding legislation, especially around baseline standards or standard operating procedures. I will just quickly say it does call out for the standard operating procedures. This is an opportunity for the administration, particularly the Director of Recreation and Public Works, to work with other stakeholders to create internal operating procedures specific to those departments. So your next page said next steps?
Yes.
Thank you. I apologize. I thought I had pushed more buttons for you. The next steps are really what can happen as a result of all of this information. The experts, again, are recommending formalize a park advisory group. What they're suggesting is having some type of criteria to ensure broad representation. They're suggesting that this group would be led by city administration, namely the Director of Recreation. They go on to suggest that city staff or contractors would be the lead on all construction projects. And then they go on to say that there should be a way where baseline standards, operation manuals, and maintenance standards are created in a way that allows and provides more guidance for how elected officials and advisory group and city staff would work together. I do want to read the last part of this because I think it's a really good vision for where things might go. It says, a holistic, transparent, and community-based approach will allow Norwood to become a local leader in municipal park management. The important first step of assessment is complete and is combined in the combined effort of many community partners in building in momentum. An iterative approach is recommended for Norwood Park improvements. Incremental and logical planning that is data-driven and community-centered will yield results. Does anyone have any other questions about that?
If we could, on page 57, the second and third paragraph, just kind of talk about those a little bit, and the purpose and the thought behind those.
57?
Yes, ma'am.
The second and third paragraph. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So this reads, to depoliticalize the process and build public trust, creating a criteria for public participants and an application process is advisable. Criteria can be, I think that's to be representative or representation from different neighborhoods in the city, desired experience, a representative from a key stakeholder group, other factors as determined by city officials and key partners. So I think this is the consultants describing the process that they're aware of can be a resource if the city were to determine having a staff-led park advisory group would be an important next step. One of the things we did ask is that there would be a lot of facilitation in this tool, so there wouldn't have to be a heavy lift on deciding how a process would unfold. The ideas are embedded within the document.
I had a question here. I remember Miss Santos, who was visiting last time, said I could rank them or rack and stack them. I forget how we did it. It would be kind of my professional opinion. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't necessarily be what a group is saying.
Yeah.
So did she? Excuse me. Did she do that, or is the recommendation here is kind of saying better that someone like Rosie Santos not put a recommendation and you guys and the public recreation director do that instead? Is that?
So the full report does include a statement, which I'll read to you.
Cool.
It says, we would not recommend proceeding with capital investment solely based on condition data. However, it's important to address major safety and maintenance concerns at parks currently in the worst condition. For the purpose of prioritized maintenance, we're providing a list of parks recommended to address first from the perspective of safety. Mm-hmm. There is that full list.
Okay, thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Do we have that list today?
It's in the report.
Yes, you were provided with a link to the report.
Okay.
Did you send that to everybody? I don't think I got that.
I sent it to the chairperson.
Okay.
I'll have to relook.
Cool, thanks. Yep, that's all
Appreciate
I wanted to hear.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for asking.
Can we talk about the third paragraph? We only really got to the second.
Are you on the same page?
57, yeah.
Yeah. So again, the consultant's right. The recreation director can serve as the city liaison to the work group. Participation from elected officials would be beneficial, but as participants, not as group decision makers. This group would work together to develop a park potential index tool, rank the parks based on this defined criteria, and the scores for each park would be aggregated to create a redevelopment schedule. The next step after that process would be to create a development process. An iterative community engagement, design, and construction schedule is recommended to expedite projects and ensure more immediate results.
Thanks.
I'm looking forward to seeing the whole report. I was very interested in what you all had to present at council last couple weeks ago, and appreciate you coming in and sharing this with us. And I can't, like I said, I'm looking forward to actually getting in and seeing some of the details and seeing what we can do with the data and information you all have provided. So I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for coming in and presenting this, and I'll double check my email. When did you send it recently, or?
We sent it the day it was complete, back on May 28th.
Okay. I'll look, if I have that, I'll send it to everybody, just make sure they have that. Thank you.
It'll be interesting to look through it, because I have some concerns myself, just off these 5 papers that are sent, so it'll be interesting to see what other concerns I've got.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, and that'll take us to item number 4 is existing park project updates. So I was able to speak with Clint Zimmerman regarding Hunter Park, and I asked for, if he had a tentative install date for the play sets. We do have custody of the play sets, well, possession owners, probably rather say, of the play sets, and we're waiting for them to be installed. We're looking around June 20 to 28th, I believe you said. Not long at all. I'm getting Phil Kraby and Darren, our project manager, in touch with Mr. Atwood at school board so they can communicate more on the grant opportunity that we are going to partner with them with for the walking path and the outdoor workout equipment around the walking path, so they'll be able to delve into that a lot more. And we did talk a little bit, myself and the project manager, about extending the dog park there that we decided we wanted to have.
Where?
At Hunter.
Okay.
And that's also, we have grants for that too. So what we're doing at Hunter, it's a big project, but we're utilizing a lot of grant money, and more so than city money for that park. And I think that's huge anyway going forward. So what they're talking about is extending the dog park all the way down to the end of the park behind that bathroom on the left side of the walking path and the play sets. Cool. So, and I think that'll be pretty beneficial as well. So that's an update I have from there. As all you guys have.
I did have a question on that. Sorry, I'm glad you brought it up. I forgot to ask it like months ago. But for the dog park, presumably because it's not going to be managed, it's open to it anyway. It's not like, it's not going to have some have restrictions. I'm like, this is kind of just, it exists. Whoever comes in, doesn't have to be Norwood residents or local residents.
Yes, from my understanding, the dog park will be open and free. I don't think there's any restrictions or discussion of any restrictions, but I can ask Phil Kraby.
I would make sure that we put at least something on there to where we can have a tag in or some sort of locking mechanism, because a lot of these dog parks, as far as liability, you got to be able to track things such as vaccinations of dogs, and make sure that the owners are attentive to their dogs, because one owner may think that the dog is nice and calm, and the next thing, dog turns around and bites another dog. Or so I would suggest that we look into having some sort of locking system, especially at night, so we're not having dogs go in, or owners take their dogs in at midnight.
Yeah. And I think that's something we can definitely recommend and say, hey, when you guys are looking at bids for fencing, hey, what about?
We're supposed to speak louder into here.
Well,
I know.
something I think we can recommend, adapt and overcome here, is when we're looking at bids for fencing, we can look at bids for, hey, you know, badge in, badge out kind of systems like we have at City Hall now, like the schools have at all their buildings and that, just to kind of keep accountability there for if, you know, an animal does attack somebody or, you know, something like that, we know exactly who it is, what's going on, and who's accessing the park at that time.
I would say that I think that's a super smart idea. I don't think it's an absolute necessary thing, though. I think we should look into it. I would just say, like, a neighboring city's auto arm letter, I think, if I'm pronouncing that wrong, that's a public and it's an open dog park. It's one of the largest, and you don't have to sign in or anything like that. So I think it's certainly definitely a recommendation. Let's look into it. But if it's cost prohibitive, I don't think that that should stop anything.
Yeah.
Because there are plenty of models nearby that don't do anything like that, and they're one of the largest and most used, you know, dog parks I know of nearby. So yeah, I think it's cool. Just let's not let it go too crazy.
Yeah, and I think there's pluses and minuses to both, because the average person going up there is probably just walking from their house over to the park. They
I
don't
imagine
know, well, I got to go to City Hall and buy this first. So it's definitely going to be one of those cost-effective things, and how do we promote it? How do we get the information out there?
Thank you for answering.
And each of you guys have a rendering I put together for Waterworks baseball fields. We've discussed, hey, we're going to go forward with this project in 2021. We want to get this done. Baseball season's ended. The fields are open, empty, and we're able to, you know, kind of start breaking ground on these. There's Waterworks 1, 3, and 4, and for anybody who doesn't understand why there's no 2, it used to be in center field of 1, and has since become not a baseball
Obsolete.
field. Yeah. So what we have here, just some of the key features of Waterworks 4. We're in all the fields, we're looking at leveling all the infields where we don't have crowns. That's not only just going to help gameplay, but it'll also help drainage. So it'll keep water from pooling up in the middle of the field, and then by the home plate and all that stuff. New fences at all the fields, dugout fences. A lot of our fences in front of the dugouts are curled up, and that's very dangerous. The ground rules get a little wild down there for if the ball goes under, if somebody gets too close, stuff like that. So that's definitely a main safety concern. New backstops, as a lot of those fencing it's the same at the bottom. They're just old, they're worn. I mean, we've taken care of them. They've not fallen down or anything like that, but they do pose safety concerns, and they need updated. Another big feature that we're looking at for all the baseball fields here is poured concrete dugout slabs. What that'll do is it'll also keep conditions better for teams that are playing there, that where the field's ready to play on. It did rain, but it'll keep water from being pooled there, so kids aren't, you know, sitting in mud puddles.
Sure.
On the bleachers.
Or their equipment too.
Yeah, and their equipment, it's not sitting on the in the mud. On Waterworks 4 here, you'll see if you go down the bleachers, there's a empty area behind the dugout. What we're considering doing here is a concrete kind of a walking path and measuring it off. I went down with measuring tapes and one of the rolling measuring things. I measured every inch of these fences, dugouts, concrete. We're looking around a 1,400 square foot walking path behind home plate on Waterworks 4. It's down in kind of a U-shaped hill kind of area. Again, just to keep it from being super muddy down there and easy to access, and safety concerns as well. And this, on the first base side, looking at cutting the hill back about 4 feet, adding like a paver wall, just to open that area up, allow for some of the visiting parents to sit down there safely, away from the field of play, and not, you know, where they could end up getting hurt or interfere with the game. That's about it for 4. And then Waterworks 3, some people might not be familiar with it. It's down there at the very end, over left field of Waterworks 1. It's kind of tucked away. It's one of our smaller fields there at Waterworks. The dugouts are really big, so what we're talking about doing is making those smaller. and really keeping that fencing around that concrete path. That'll also allow for more fans to sit along this first base line and be safe because there's a fence there protecting them. Doing the concrete dugouts on each side there. Again, leveling the infield, new dugout, backstop, kind of a situation there. And then on the third base side, where that fence goes all the way to the home run area, it's really overgrown. And I know in years past, or decades probably past, it wasn't like that. And it's just kind of one of those maintenance issues that I guess we haven't really been able to take care of. So what we want to do is try to cut that back as much as we can. So that's not going to interfere with the gameplay as well. And it'll just make it easier to maintain and protect our new fencing that we're going to put there. So, and then Waterworks 1, yep. Oh, yeah, thank you. That's
Damn.
on...
No, 493? That's a deep home.
No, I'll explain. So, going on to Waterworks 1, we have this walkway that comes from the parking lot. What we're talking about doing there is typically been a wide open space, and most batters are right-handed, statistically speaking, and you catch a right foul ball out of there, it's coming right through that gate, and it's going to catch somebody. I'm surprised it hasn't happened more often. So what we're talking about there is new backstops with a gate there, and also a gate on the third base side where you can access the field, and kind of same situation there. Mm-hmm. It's a really funky kind of setup field at Waterworks 1, as they're right here by the dugout, by the gate on the first base side. There's a light pole sticking right there. It's just a weird kind of a shaped field. So this is the best thing that I could really come up with of how we can make this operable and, look like a premier field. Again, concrete dugouts a little bigger. These are 30 by 8 feet as typically as high school kids going to be playing on these kind of fields. A little bit more room needed. And what we're doing is we're not, like Waterworks 3 you'll see it's pretty enclosed with a gate on left field where City Public Works can access. So we're just going to keep that fenced in as it is, the same layout. But Waterworks 1, what we're going to do is there's a home run fence in left field that extends over to center field, mainly there to protect Waterworks 3. In case somebody hits a home run, it's not coming down on their field. We have netting there as well. Mm-hmm. And it's like a big monster fence. What we talked about is keeping that, and then it steps down, and then in the center field, adding just a 3-foot fence, and carrying that all the way around the right field. At certain age levels, you want a home run fence, especially if we were to make money on having select teams come, travel teams, softball leagues, that kind of thing. We need a home run fence. So that home run fence from the left field side, third base side, to the right field side on first base side, that is 493 feet total. Not deep.
Okay.
I have the depth measurements, but
like,
they're
these
not
guys
there. Yeah, no, it's like 300 feet and then like or 350 and then like
Cool.
308, something like that. But yeah, and then we're just pretty much replacing the fence that's there, adding a couple gates, concrete dugouts, making it more updated, like ballparks like Blue Ash, things like that where they have a more updated look. That's really what we want to go for. Just preliminary talking to Phil Kraby, he likes the idea of, hey, now we can do that and have different leagues, make money, all that stuff. So I wanted to bring these here for you guys to see. If you had any questions, any thoughts, maybe what about this or that, before I go ahead and send those out. These were done at different times, so the formatting is a little different. I'm going to clean that up tonight. I know Thompson's looking at that, being a graphic designer. But I'm gonna fix those before I clean it up, so it's all the same uniform before I send it out to them. But I wanted you guys as the committee to look at these and kind of not only just see what's going to happen, but be involved in what you guys think as well.
I thought about budgets on this stuff. I mean, I know we've talked about it before, but I don't remember how much money we've got.
Yeah. So what we have done is, if some of you guys don't remember, we earmarked $100,000 for ball fields, and what. After speaking with Clint, what he's looking at doing is getting with the lenders to see if they can donate some money for some of the field stuff in case it goes a little higher. Mm-hmm. Because some of the quotes he's gotten so far for just the fencing alone is a large portion of that budget.
Right.
And then leveling the field, getting dirt, conditioner for the dirt, all that, and the concrete. I mean, it's going to add up.
Yeah.
So he's looking at other funding sources. we're accepting bids, coming in, trying to get bids that are a little lower, a little cheaper, that last more than a week. I think he said he's having problems with, they were like, hey, here's a quote, it's good for a week. So we want to get somebody maybe that's a little cheaper, gives us a little bit more time to prep, plan, and, all right, let's pull the trigger on it. But he's looking at with Linder and that family who's in the past been very gracious to Waterworks Park and Norwood, at least trying to see if they can donate some funding for lighting, so we can do that as well. If not, just some extra raw funds to help make these reality. And I believe we're looking at some grants as well.
Should we prioritize between the 3 fields and, or like level of upgrade that we want to do to make sure that we can get the most bang for whatever we're able to get? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I know, like saying, well, instead of just doing the fences now, what if we just level the fields?
Well, it was like, we could do all of Waterworks 1,
Yeah,
but the other 2 would have to wait. Or you could do fences on all of them, but the other parts, you know, if we just
that
don't
is a
get-
very good question. It's not something I've wanted to have to think about, because I would like to do them all 3, but it's reasonable and it's responsible to think about, because with all the stuff we're trying to add to these parks, that might be something that we have to discuss and we have to talk about. And so with the reality of that, we would have to kind of make those decisions. And again, I would like our committee to maybe meet, talk about that, give our recommendation. Of course, Phil Craig being a rec director, he's going to be in touch and not whole, hey, what fields are used more, kind of a priority issue in that way, as well as funding. So yeah, that's something that could happen. So that's a very good question. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Is there a chance that maybe we get with Norwood Knothole and maybe change the actual names of them, since we're missing a field, and
Yeah, like naming the fields.
instead of it being Waterworks 4, we just get with the Knothole organization and say, hey, let's figure out a way to get actual names up there instead of Waterworks 1, Waterworks 2, Waterworks 3, 4. Just actually name the fields.
Potentially look for sponsorship of the fields.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pay
So I
for a
am-
field and-
just
Yeah.
like Great American.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and this is still very early. We're still kind of like bid seeking and just kind of seeing what exactly things are going to cost as well.
Yeah.
It's something we want to move quickly on once we get an idea of what we're doing and how much it's going to run. But those are definitely things, and I can ask about that. That'd be a good idea. I didn't think about renaming the fields. I just thought about redoing the fields.
The sponsor
Because they
thing could
need
be
them,
enough,
yeah.
like Linder's could.
Yeah, and the thing with the home run fences as well, it's a big sponsorship tool, you know? It's ad space, people can have, you know, kind of a big banner or something like that out there, and it's just, that's a no-brainer, I think. Hillary Keenan has reached out to me in the past about this. I'm gonna send her these as well, because she was talking about having an interest in finding some grants and working along in this project. So I'm gonna let her know that these are finished, kind of, hey, we're looking at funding and stuff like that, kind of see what grants she can come up with and ideas as well. So I'm gonna communicate that with her. So she might be able to help out with some of that as well.
That's great.
Any other questions? Thoughts?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, with that, I'll go ahead and call close to this Parks and Recreation Public Spaces Committee meeting.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.